Most people see old age as a long, slow surrender to the inevitable. But I've identified 9 traps that ensure your final years are filled with regret. If you recognize yourself in even a few of these, your so-called golden years could become a bleak horizon. Make sure you hear all of them. The final one changes everything. The hidden venom. When I look at many older people today, a deep sadness stirs in my soul. I witness men and women who navigated decades of this world, gathering immense wisdom and surviving incredible challenges. Yet they now fade into the background. They move through their days with a vacant look, like ghosts in their own lives. They have a pulse, but no passion. They occupy space, but they don't truly inhabit their lives. The deepest sorrow is that this slow fade is not a mandate of age. It's a series of choices, made day after day, that quietly poison the spirit from within. The first trap that will ruin your later life is the venom of old wounds. I have met so many older men and women whose souls have become museums of past injuries, collections of ancient slights and painful betrayals that they curate with daily attention. They will recount, in detail, how a friend betrayed them 40 years ago, how their kids let them down, how circumstances robbed them of their due. This history of hurt becomes their core narrative, the main fuel for their fire, the very reason they face the day. But holding on to hate is like setting yourself on fire and expecting the other person to feel the pain. With every moment you spend feeding that old anger, you are choosing to lock yourself in a prison of yesterday. You surrender your power to people who have long forgotten you, to events that are over, to a hurt that only serves to make your present toxic. The elders who drink this venom speak with a sharp edge, find drama everywhere they turn, and then are shocked when family keeps their distance, when the phone doesn't ring, when their final chapter feels achingly empty. I've seen this single choice devastate more spirits than any physical ailment. The frame may get older, but it is the soul that gives up first, crushed by the refusal to let go. When you refuse to forgive, you are not punishing your offender. You are condemning yourself to a daily torment. You are opting to replay your darkest hours instead of writing new, bright chapters. You are letting yesterday devour the precious time you have left. The cure for this poison isn't to deny the pain. It is to recognize that releasing the grudge is an act of self-preservation. It is for you. It means you refuse to let a past injury control your present joy. It is you choosing your own liberation over the twisted comfort of a victim story. The fortress of solitude. The second trap that ensures a miserable old age is the creeping self-imposed exile. I observe as individuals slowly back away from engagement, from friendships, from their community, telling themselves it's a sign of strength when, in truth, it's a symptom of fear. They claim they are fine on their own, that relationships are too messy, that solitude is simpler than the beautiful chaos of human bonds. This self-inflicted isolation almost never arrives overnight. It's a series of small surrenders saying no to an invitation because it feels like a hassle, ignoring a text because the energy to reply isn't there, quitting a hobby because it reminds you of when you felt more alive. Each retreat feels logical at the time, but collectively they construct an invisible fortress that doesn't just block out annoyance, but also seals off connection, affection, and the vital energy that only comes from true belonging. I have witnessed older people who haven't had a meaningful conversation in weeks, with no one to bounce ideas off of, no one to see their quiet struggle, no one to truly notice if they're still here tomorrow. They exist in quiet rooms, surrounded by framed pictures of a life they no longer participate in, slowly fading from memory while they are still alive. The irony is that this loneliness is often born from a pride that calls itself self-reliance. They claim they don't want to be a bother, but the deeper truth is they dread seeming weak, admitting they crave the same human touch and shared laughter they always have. And so they pick the silent agony of loneliness over the perceived risk of reaching out. But we are not wired for isolation. We are pack animals, designed for community, needing a tribe to feel whole at every stage of life. The elders who age beautifully know this. They nurture their connections. They show up for their people. They share what they've learned with the world. They know giving and receiving connection is not a bonus. It's the very oxygen the soul needs to survive. The rust of an idle mind. The third disastrous mistake is letting your mind become a dusty attic where new light never enters. I meet elders who essentially retired from thinking on the same day they retired from their job. They cease seeking intellectual challenges, filling their hours with passive distractions, and then feel puzzled by the immense void, the lack of direction, the mental haze that clouds their days. Your brain demands exercise just as much as your biceps do. Neglect it, and it will weaken. When you cease feeding it new perspectives, fresh problems, and novel experiences, it starts to cannibalize itself, endlessly replaying old narratives, reinforcing old biases, and shrinking your world. You become mentally brittle, threatened by change, blind to fresh opportunities, and incapable of becoming more than you were at 40. I've seen incredibly sharp minds dull into echoes of their former selves, all because they bought into the lie that learning has an age limit. They gave up demanding books, quit having passionate debates, and stopped being curious about the world. They surrendered to the idea they were too old for that, too fossilized in their beliefs to evolve. Bit by bit, their own minds became their cages. The most electrifying older people I know have one thing in common. They are relentless rookies, always learning something new. They tackle new instruments, wrestle with new software, devour books that open their worldview, and seek out conversations that make them think. They get that mental vitality is not a function of your birth year. It's a measure of your curiosity and your refusal to believe your best ideas are behind you. When you keep your mind in motion, you preserve your curiosity, your power to offer wisdom, and your capacity for pure discovery. You stay vital not by clinging to youth, but by insisting on being fully engaged with life right now, letting your body crumble. The fourth major error is passively surrendering your physical self to decline, as if there were no other option. I encounter seniors who view their bodies as faulty equipment, resigning themselves to stiffness, frailty, and chronic discomfort as non-negotiable facts of aging. They cease to challenge their bodies. They stop moving with intention. They give up on their physical home, and then they're mystified why each day feels like a battle against their own form. Your body is not some separate entity. It's the vessel for your entire life's journey. It has been with you through every triumph and tear, adapted to immense stress, healed itself countless times, and it craves your partnership, not your resignation. When you give up on your body, you give up your ticket to participate in the physical world. The great misunderstanding is that most of what we label normal aging is actually the cumulative effect of our choices, not a pre-written biological script. The limited mobility, the persistent aches, the general weakness that so many seniors accept as their destiny. A huge portion of this can be held at bay, improved, or even turned around with consistent, smart physical effort. I've met people in their 80s who possess more agility and power than people 30 years younger. It wasn't their genes, it was their habits. They chose to walk when it was easier to stay seated. They chose to lift weights when others chose the recliner. They chose to honor their bodies as amazing instruments deserving of maintenance, not as heavy burdens. Physical well-being in your later years isn't about chasing your 20-year-old self. It's about preserving the fundamental freedom to live without constant assistance, to engage with your environment, to serve the people you love, and to feel the simple grace of being at home in a body that works with you. The void of irrelevance. The fifth devastating mistake is to equate retirement with a retirement from significance. I see so many men and women who invest a lifetime owning their craft, gathering expertise, and building a wealth of knowledge, only to discard it all on a date circled on a calendar by society. They tell themselves they have paid their dues and have a right to be useless, to be unneeded, to answer to no one. But a human being is not built for a life devoid of meaning. We are wired to matter, to to feel that our time on this planet counts for something, that we offer a value that transcends our own personal comfort. When you walk away from your purpose, you walk away from the engine that drives a meaningful life. I have witnessed formerly brilliant, powerful people spiral into a fog of depression and listlessness just months after their retirement party. They lost the very structure that gave them a reason to rise, a problem to solve, a peak to climb, a way to share their unique value with others. They dreamed of being free from all obligation, but instead found themselves free from all meaning. The elders who truly flourish are those who grasp that their purpose simply transforms. It never truly ends. They may not have the same job title, but they discover fresh avenues to contribute, to guide, to create, to influence. They coach the next generation, pour energy into causes they champion, craft their art, write their memoirs, or simply become the pillars of love and wisdom for their own families. Purpose is not a title on a business card. It's a daily choice to stay in the game of life, to insist on growing, and to continue giving your irreplaceable gifts to the world, no matter the number of candles on your cake. The fear of the final question. The sixth fatal choice is to arrive at the doorstep of mortality with no inner framework, no sense of belonging to a story larger than your own biography. As the physical body changes and its pleasures become more fleeting, as the painful goodbyes to friends and peers accumulate, as you face the inescapable fact of your own finite time, you require a source of strength deeper than your bank account or your collection of memories. I have sat with many elders who dedicated their lives to stacking up wins, possessions, and passport stamps, only to find in their twilight years that none of it offers solace against the ultimate questions. Who am I without my job title and my social roles? Did this life I lived have a point? What is on the other side of this body's final breath? How can I look at the end without being consumed by fear? Without any spiritual exploration, these profound questions become engines of terror instead of gateways to unmatched clarity and calm. Elders who have ignored their inner lives often get trapped in cycles of fear, bitterness, and a frantic grabbing at youth or distractions, anything to avoid looking inward. But the elders who have nurtured their spiritual side, whether through a faith, a meditative practice, a philosophy, or just a lifelong, honest contemplation of it all, greet their last chapters with a sense of wholeness and calm. They know they are a thread in a much larger tapestry, that their existence had significance beyond their personal scorecard, and that death is a transition, not an annihilation. Cultivating your spirit is not about finding a specific religion. It's about forging the inner steel that lets you face life's most profound moments with courage, grace, and wisdom. The trap of late life poverty. The seventh fatal error is a lifetime of financial neglect that turns what should be your years of ease into a nightmare of dependency, scarcity, and unending anxiety over bills. I've seen people who made solid money for 40 years find themselves broke in their 70s because they failed to master the simple arts of saving, investing, and planning for a future without a regular paycheck. Financial peace in old age isn't about being rich. It's about possessing the freedom to maintain your dignity, your autonomy, and your basic well-being when you're no longer trading time for money. It's about not having your children feel burdened, not having to pick between buying prescriptions or groceries, and not living with a constant knot of dread in your stomach about your own survival. The heart of the issue is that planning for this future isn't rocket science, but it demands self-control, foresight, and a willingness to say no to immediate wants for the sake of future needs, virtues that our culture of instant gratification actively works against. People coast for decades on the edge of their means, accumulating stuff they don't truly need with money they can't really spare, assuming that retirement planning is a problem for a future self. But that future always arrives, and with it, the cold reality of past financial choices becomes undeniable. The pressure of financial instability in your later years poisons everything: your health, your relationships, your mental peace, and your capacity to savor the time you have. The elders who navigate their later years with calm confidence almost universally share one trait: they started early to spend less than they earned, save automatically, invest with patience, and map out their long-term needs. They knew that while money can't buy happiness, financial stability is the foundation upon which peace of mind is built. Final understanding. The eighth tragic mistake is to view death as a monster to be outrun, rather than as a fundamental part of the life cycle, to be met with awareness and dignity. Our society teaches us to look away from death, to battle it with every last breath, to label any conversation about our own mortality as giving up. But this constant aversion is what breeds the very panic and anguish it's supposed to prevent. I have been with many people in their final days, and I can assure you that the greatest suffering is not found in those with failing bodies. It is found in those with terrified spirits, unprepared to face what is coming. They've invested a lifetime in not thinking about their own end, so when it becomes impossible to ignore, they are left with only panic, what ifs, and a desperate scramble for more time they cannot have. But the ninth and most devastating mistake, the one that truly poisons your final decades, is buying into the lie that growing old means becoming a lesser version of yourself. It is believing you are fading when you are actually concentrating. Aging is not about loss. It is the grand culmination of who you are. It is your moment to finally become the most authentic, undiluted version of you. When you battle the process instead of wielding it like a master, when you desperately try to stay young instead of becoming profoundly and powerfully old, when you see your laugh lines as defects instead of a testament to a life filled with joy, you deny yourself the incredible strength and beauty that can only come from a life fully lived. The elders who take our breath away are not the ones who look the youngest. They are the ones who are the most fully and unapologetically themselves, wearing their years not as a burden, but as a masterpiece.